Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, Dr. Magnesium. Today we're going to be talking about a topic that's pretty hot right now. It seems to be everywhere. It's ultra processed foods, or more commonly known as UPFs. This is a massive topic. It's very complex and it's going to take up a lot of time to get our heads around and to understand fully the dangers and why we're eating them and why they're added to foods. Ultra processed foods, more commonly known as UPFs. They were first, the term was first coined by a doctor from Brazil in 2014, Carlos Monteiro. And he first started looking into this when he noticed that he had a lot of patients coming in, obese patients who were overnourished, whose bloods were showing that they were undernourished. And he was thinking this didn't make sense. So he started to look into it a bit further. And he come up with a rather useful classification system, which is recognized as the classification system today, called NOVA, the NOVA classification system, which is NOVA, and that's four groups. So the first group is natural, unprocessed or minimally processed foods, which is simple really. It's things like, for example, an apple. You take an apple off a tree, it gets driven to a processing centre, taken to a market, taken to a local shop, taken to a supermarket, whatever. So it's minimally processed, it's taken away, categorised, grouped and sold, and that's it, nothing added. The second group, Nova 2, is processed culinary ingredients, so oils, butters, salts, etc. But these are food products that are minimally altered. The structure may be altered, and the form may be altered by being milled, or they may be ground down. So you get wheat, for example, turned into flour, or you get rock salt turned into more of a powdered salt. And these are not ultra processed. These are classed as a Nova Group 2. Group 3 is processed foods, but not ultra processed. So foods such as bread, so freshly baked breads from a bakery would be classed as a processed food, not your classic plastic wrapped bread that you get in the supermarkets, which again we'll go into next. Foods such as fresh breads, canned fruits, so canned in syrups, cheeses, stuff like that are classed as processed, but they still retain enough of the nutritional benefit and enough of what they were originally to be classed as processed, not ultra processed. And the last group is the ultra processed foods, that's Nova 4. And these groups are a group of foods that are so far altered from the original state that they technically are no longer classed as that food group. So the physical composition, the chemical composition has changed significantly. So you don't get the nutritional benefit that you would have previously. And these are the UPFs. It's a massive, massive range of foods, and we'll go into a little bit further as we go on. But that's the initial classification system, the NOVA classification system. Many people don't think of ultra processed food as an addiction, but it really is. It's as addictive as any other drug. It is a drug. It's a toxin that's put into foods by chemical companies. It's designed to reward centres. It's not just designed that way. Billions and billions of pounds or dollars are spent each year making sure that people are rewarded with this food, making sure that people feel like it rewards them, to try and build that addiction to the food. And the reason that the companies do this is to generate profits for themselves. In doing this, it makes us unhealthier, but we know the reasons why it makes us unhealthy, and now we need to know how to break that chain and how to stop eating this food. So as I say, it's a hundreds of billions of dollar industry, this industry, and there's a lot of psychology goes into it, into building up a dependence and to building up this reward and pleasure kind of cycle. For addiction, I've looked at a technique called the AVRT, or the Addictive Voice Recognition Technique, and it's a technique that's used very successfully, I should say, in drug and alcohol addiction. And it's something that could easily be applied to ultra processed foods as well. What we need to do is we need to recognise that the kind of drive to eat ultra processed foods, although generated by the body because of these reward pathways, the actual drive and the decision to put that food in your mouth is your decision. It's not anybody making you do it. Nobody's picking up that fork for you, nobody's opening the packets for you. It's yourself that is doing it. So the first key is to remember that this is you doing this. The voice inside that's telling you to eat this is you. It's you, but it's also a part of you that you can control, and you can take away that part of yourself by recognizing that it's the same part of yourself that wants to drink, wants to take drugs, wants to do irresponsible behaviors, risk-seeking behaviors. It's that kind of part of your deep primal instinct that wants to create pleasure. Basically, it's coming from that same area within the brain, and we have a frontal regulation of that, which tells us not to do things, which tells us not to drive once we've drink, tells us to reduce the amount of alcohol that we drink, tells us not to cheat on our partners, tells us not to steal things, not to break the law. That's the kind of frontal regulation of the limbic system. And the way that we can deal with this is the same way that we've dealt with it in our alcohol videos. We can make that recognize as the first thing. So once we've recognized that it's not us, it's this deep primal part of our brain that's telling us to reward itself. It wants reward, it wants to feed itself that kind of pleasure. Once we disassociate that from our everyday self and realize that's not actually us, we don't want to do that, then we can find ways to kind of negate that damage that it's doing to us. And the way that we do this with alcohol is to look at a pleasure box and a pain list. So if we make that pain list first, and we look at all the negative impacts, all the pain that drinking has caused us, but the same for UPF, so ultra-processed foods, and not just for us, for our children, because we're feeding this into our children. Every day, 70% of children's diet comes from UPFs in this country. That's phenomenal amount of rubbish that we're putting in our kids' mouths. Not just rubbish, though, poison. We're looking at the first generation of kids who are going to die before the parents because of the crap that we're feeding them. This is not an issue to take lightly. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is fact. We're poisoning our kids. We're making our kids unhealthy, and we're ultimately killing them with kindness. And that's the thing to put on your pain list. That's the first thing that I put on my pain list if you're a parent. We are eating this rubbish. We're putting this rubbish in our body, but we're also putting it in our kids' body. We're causing our kids harm by eating this rubbish, this fast food, this comfort food, this pre-prepared foods. And whether there's cost implications or whether it's irrelevant, the priority is the health of your children. That should be your priority, and that should be the first, certainly first on my pain list. The fact that eating this food or giving this food to my family causes harm. Eating this food causes me harm. It's likely to make me have a higher risk of getting diabetes, make me obese, make me have a poor self-image, make my cardiovascular risk factor, so I'd be more chance of getting a heart attack, more chance of getting strokes, more chance of losing limbs, having renal failure, more chance of going blind, having ulcers, being unhealthy, unfit, unable to play with me children, unable to witness me grandchildren being born. These are all things that need to be on the pain list. Eating this food does not come without consequences. There's mental health consequences with the sugar spikes and the following depression and anxiety related to it, the dementias that are related to it, the cancers. These foods are toxins, they're harmful, they're not good for us, and that should be the first or the second thing on the pain list if you put the fact that you're harming your children on. So my pain list would be, I'm feeding this rubbish to my children, I'm feeding it to myself, I'm making myself unhealthy, I'm making my children unhealthy. I'd be unfit, obese, overweight. I'm talking about me personally. Before I've lost 20 kilograms now from not eating UPF. So for me, I'm not as unhealthy as I was. I'm more active. For example, I took my daughter out yesterday and we were learning to ride a bike. I was sprinting up and down a road, holding the back of the seat. That would have been an issue for me few months ago, 6 months ago maybe. I used to struggle to bend over to tie my shoes. That was an issue, never mind sprinting up and down, even though I was exercising, by the way, but never mind running up and down a hill with my daughter on a bike. These are big for me, big negatives, and hopefully the big negatives for you. So there's your pain, whatever pain is related to you to these food, whether it's guilt associated with it, health associations, anything, mental health, depression, whatever issues that you've had with this food, that's your pain list. You make that, you say, this is my pain list, this is what causes me issues, this is what's ruining my life. Then you make your pleasure box. Okay, so you say, every time you feel like eating that food, you say, this is the pain that this causes me, this is the harm it's doing to my body. Every time you want to open a tube that you can't stop once you pop, or whatever it is, or passing a sweet shop, or whatever your favourite comfort food is, every time you open one of them frozen meals, think about what you're doing to yourself, think about what you're doing to your children. There's your pain list. So then your pleasure box, again, we're using this from the alcohol videos and from the AVRT technique. Your pleasure box then is that if I stop eating this food, if I eat healthier, I'll lose weight, I'll be fitter, I'll be more present for my children, I'll be healthier, I'll be less likely to die early, to get cancers, I'll be there for my grandchildren, I'll be there to help. Maybe you're thinking, when my older children have kids, have grandkids, I'll be able to look after them, I will be able to run around after them, I'll be able to help with childcare, to reduce costs for me kids, whatever it is, whatever your pleasure box. Just the fact that you can see your knees again, your feet again, the fact that you're losing weight, you're healthier, you're getting in the gym, you're being able to play a sport you used to like, all these can go in your pleasure box. So you've got your pain list and you've got your pleasure box. And this whole video is about breaking addiction. We need to treat ultra processed foods the same way we do any other drug, and to get off drugs we need to use this technique. We need to put a pain list together and a pleasure box. So why do companies use UPFs? And the reason for that is depressingly familiar, I'm afraid. It is for profit. And there's several different ways that companies can make profits or can generate profit from UPFs. The first is by driving sales, by driving desire to eat UPF. And that can often be caused by just eating UPF itself. There's been many studies that have showed over the years that a diet high in UPFs causes people to eat more UPF. So there's a big Italian study a few years ago, which was a randomized control trial, which split participants into two groups. And one group could eat anything from a UPF table. The second group could eat anything from a non-UPF table. Halfway through the study, they switched over, and they could eat non-UPFs or minimal UPFs versus UPFs. Both groups allowed to eat whatever they wanted. There was no restrictions. And by the end of the study, it showed that the groups who were eating UPFs or a diet high in UPF were consuming on average around 500 calories per day more than the other non-UPF group. There was also a significant weight gain within that group. So that's the first reason. The first reason is to generate sales. So if people buy more, companies make more profit. The second reason is there's often an overlap, a shared ownership of companies. So the companies that make these chemicals that go into the food and make food UPF often have interests within the food sector as well. So there's a vested interest. So they getting paid to put their own chemicals in food, and then they sell this on. So that's the second way. And the third way, and most common and profitable way, is by reselling food, reselling natural food products. And the best way to explain this is use an example, which I often use, of yogurt. So if you have a natural yogurt, food companies will then take out the natural goodness of the yogurt, so the sugars, the proteins, the fats. They'll remove them from the yogurt. They'll put them into different foods, whatever way. They'll chemically alter them, they'll process them, and they'll stick them into different foods, or they can sell them as protein directly, for example, for muscle products, weight gain products. So they're making the money by taking the natural ingredients out of the yogurt and reselling it on. They're then left with a unappetizing gloop, which people wouldn't choose to eat. So what they then do, they will then use chemicals, often from their own companies. They'll thicken this gloop up by using gums and stabilizers to give it a good mouth feel, so they get a mouth texture, so you feel like you're eating a nice creamy yogurt. They then add the flavourings in, again coming from their own companies, and they'll make this artificial product. This artificial product is free from fats, free from sugars, so they will then sell this as a premium product. This will be a health product, which is low in sugar or zero sugar. It'll be low in carbs, it'll be low in calories, and they can sell this as a health product at a premium. So they've took this one product, they've took all the goodness out, they've processed this, and whatever goodness was is no longer good. It's added into other products, and what they've been left over with, they resell as a health product. And that's the three main ways that companies make profit from UPFs, and that's the driver behind it for the companies. That's why they do it. They do it to make to stretch products out, to make products last longer on the shelf, to be able to transport products easier. This all comes within one of them three categories of how they make the money, but it's simple. They do it to make money. It drives profit, makes money for themselves. Not good for us, it's not healthy, although they claim it's healthy. One tip, what I was always told, if something is in plastic, either entombed in plastic, wrapped in plastic, and claims to be healthy, it invariably is not healthy. It's often, if you take something out, you've got to put something back in, and the something that they put back in is usually toxins, chemicals, which are not good for us. So why we choose to eat a diet which is so high in ultra-processed food. The first reason I would say is that they taste so good. Let's be honest, most people are driven to eat these products because they do taste good. They're high in sugar often. Some of them taste absolutely vile, and the longer that you're off them, they seem less appealing. But because we've been brought up on this diet, and most of us, our whole lives, we've grown up eating a high percentage of UPFs, or eating UPFs as a treat, certainly. And that's why they've got that term comfort food, because they bring us comfort. They give us the high in sugar, they give us that short burst of energy that it reverts back to our primal days, where we would like to eat a energy source which gives us that initial burst so we can get away from danger. They also stimulate pleasure centers within the brain. So eating these products stimulates a release of certain chemicals in the brain that make us feel good. So looking back at the evidence, looking back at the previous videos, I think it's obvious that there's a drive within humans to eat these foods. Studies have shown that just eating UPFs makes you eat more calories, makes you eat more UPFs. So I think the reason that we eat them is because, firstly, they're good. Secondly, they're marketed so heavily towards us. The food industry spends billions of pounds, billions of dollars every year marketing these products at us, because they make a lot of money off them, as we've said in previous videos. So I think that kind of covers the initial drive to eat them, the reason why we feel compelled to eat them, and the pleasurable aspect of eating them. The second would be, I would say, cost. A lot of, if we go away from the comfort foods and we go more onto the cheaper kind of processed foods and the frozen meals and pre-prepared meals from supermarkets and other such outlets, there's definitely a cost element to that. You can feed a family for a lot cheaper if you buy these frozen meals, or if you buy these pre-prepared meals. It costs a lot less than buying the fresh ingredients, having the time to make the meals, as well as the cost implications. There's the time implications. People live busier lives. We don't get in at a reasonable time. People often finish work late. They rush in from work, pick up the kids. They just throw something in the oven or something in the microwave, and it's quick, it's convenient, it's cheap. If people are, in today's world that we live in, everybody's stretched financially with the cost of living crisis, the cost of energy. So there's definitely an understandable reason why people choose to eat them, for cost implications. Also, you've got, kind of tied into this reason, you've got the lack of skills. We're coming into the second and third generation of people who've ate a high proportion of these kind of pre-prepared meals. And it's whether there's still that skill set there. It's whether you're getting them traditional cookery skills passed down from generation to generation. I think the longer that we go on eating these kind of convenience foods and pre-prepared foods, I think we're losing that skill that we once had to prepare fresh foods. We're losing the generational recipes that we would have had and the tricks to making certain products. I'd say there's a lack of knowledge, a lack of education around what an ultra-processed food is. It's complicated. It's difficult for medical professionals like myself to know what an ultra-processed food is often. So for a layperson with a limited understanding of metabolism and of chemicals and of the food industry in general, it's difficult. It's difficult to know what is UPF and what isn't UPF and why things are UPF. So it really is complicated. I can understand why people kind of fall into the trap of eating foods that they don't even know are UPF. And I'm gonna use an example here as myself. So I'm a doctor. I'm an acute medical consultant. I've got an interest in food. I've always trained. I've been a quite successful amateur athlete when I was younger. I was a boxer, I was a soldier. So I've always had an interest in health and fitness and diet. Yet over the last 20 years, I seem to have just progressively put on more and more weight. I'd say every 7 years I've probably put on a stone in weight, to the point where I'd ballooned up to about 96 kilograms, so just under 15 stone. Despite trying my best, despite trying every single diet that was out there, intermittent fasted, I'd cut out all kinds of food groups, I'd cut down calories, I'd increased my training, and no matter what I tried, I always just seemed to put on weight. And it wasn't until I seriously started to look into this, and my wife got a job, and part of her job is to try and remove UPFs from schools. So she's working alongside the Welsh Government to try and take out those processed foods from the school meals within Wales. So she was doing a lot of research around it, and we started to look into it and break my diet down. And it was only then when I realised the amount of UPFs that I was actually eating. It was completely shocking. And for me, as somebody with a keen interest in food and a medical background, it was surprising that I did. It was surprising I didn't know that, and secondly, it was surprising that I just had no idea about how much UPFs were hidden in food as well. So I brought my menu down. I looked at breakfast. So breakfast, I would be eating, say, a granola or something with a coffee, maybe even a bit of fruit. For lunch, I'd be going out. I'd be going to a nice cafe. I'd have a club sandwich or something, with side salad, a bottle of iced tea, very middle class and something for the doctor. Then I'd have probably a mini pack of Jaffa cakes or something in the afternoon to give me that little boost to get me through the afternoon with a coffee. I'd go home, I'd have a freshly prepared meal from my wife for my evening meal. And then maybe for supper, I might have a bit more fruit, or I might have a couple of chocolate biscuits with a cup of coffee before bed, maybe even a piece of toast. And to me, I'd probably have snacks within that as well, maybe some nuts and maybe some fruit. And for me, I was thinking that's not too bad a diet. I couldn't understand why I was continuing to put on weight. I was training hard. I was eating this kind of diet. I was trying to avoid alcohol as much as I could, but obviously most weekends I would be drinking. And diet often goes to pot when you're drinking, as we all know. But separate video on that. But yeah, I just seemed to be stubbornly refusing to lose weight. And it wasn't until we broke it down and we looked more into it that I realised why it was. It was the granola, UPF. I would then be going for my sandwich. If you look at the sandwich, the bread would be UPF. The pre-cut chicken would be UPF. The bacon would be UPF. The margarine or spreadable butter on the bread would be UPF. The salad dressing would be UPF. My bottle of iced tea was UPF. My Jaffa cakes that I was eating for a snack in the afternoon was UPF. Even my wife, who's a really good cook, and she's been working in the food industry for 30 years, she was making food with stock pots, stock cubes, which UPF. Me evening snacks, biscuits with UPF. So when I broke it down, I was eating a diet with easily 60% UPF, easily, comfortably 60% UPF. And this is me thinking I was actually eating a good diet. So if I can be so easily fooled into thinking that that's a good diet with my background in health, fitness, and being a consultant doctor, somebody who's highly educated within this field, if it can fool me and my wife works with many chefs who've worked in the industry for 30 years, it's the exact same. People really don't realise the extent of UPFs within our diet, and I think that's what we need to address. That's the issue. I think obviously there's other issues around this topic. We've got what we've said, it's pleasurable to eat UPFs, but I would say that's more comfort food. So we're looking at the snack side of it, the sweets, biscuits side of it. If you take that away from it, then you've got the education, you've got the cost implications, where people just find it more convenient financially, can find it more convenient time-wise. We've got the lack of knowledge in cooking and the lack of that being passed down to the next generation. And we've got education, the lack of education. And I think we need to address these areas. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show the worst picture that's ever been taken of me. It's my most embarrassing picture. And when I got this photograph taken, it shocked me into doing something. It really did. And this has been the driving force behind why I've lost so much weight. I've lost 3 stone now, I think, just under 3 stone. So the body is affected by UPFs in many different ways, and I think the first and most obvious or the most visible way would be obesity. Obesity can be caused as a direct result of eating UPFs through increasing calorie intake directly, because UPFs tend to stimulate reward centers within the brain, make you feel good about yourself, make you feel it's pleasurable to eat, which makes you want to eat more. This all kind of taps back into our primal instincts to eat a diet which is high in sugars in order to get us immediate release of energy so that we can escape predators or we can fight for our territory or whatever that may be. UPFs tend to be calorie dense, so they're thick, they have high amount of calories within a small amount of food space. This tends to cause a quick transit through the gut. As it's going through quickly, they also tend to be high in sugars, so the body will metabolize the sugars quickly, use the sugars for quick energy. As it's doing this, because it's traveling through so fast, the body thinks we need to hold on to the fats. They also tend to be high in fats, so we use the immediate sugar source, energy source, and we store the fats in specially designed cells called within the adipose tissue, which is the fat, basically the blocks of fat. Leading on from that, we would have a metabolic syndrome, which is often as a direct result of obesity. Metabolic syndrome leads to, or encompasses, I should say, type 2 diabetes, high cholesterol, high blood pressure. This is a problem, obviously. Type 2 diabetes is a topic on its own. It causes many different conditions, such as chronic kidney disease, can cause poor vision or visual loss, peripheral neuropathy because of damage to small blood vessels of the nerves. Also, more recently, we've discovered that it causes microvascular angina, which is chronic heart pains, and dementia. So the small blood vessels, vascular dementia, the small blood vessels of the brain are damaged, which causes a lack of blood, a lack of oxygen to get to the brain, and an overall damage to the brain itself. Leading on from metabolic syndrome, we have the autoimmune diseases. Again, kind of links in. It causes inflammatory, UPFs cause an inflammatory process, the pro-inflammatory, which causes direct inflammation of the bowel. This can lead over time to chronic changes within the gut flora, so you get chronic diarrhea, chronic loose stools, but you can also get damage to the layers of the bowel itself, which causes inflammatory bowel disease. Leading on from this, you can get cancers. So you can get directly bowel cancers from what we've just said. But also liver cancer is directly linked to a diet high in UPFs. That's thought to be because you get direct storage of fats within the liver, which causes inflammation of the liver, hepatitis, which basically just means inflammation of the liver. After a certain amount of time, the inflamed, swollen cells start to die off, and you get a cirrhosis picture. Cirrhosis will then eventually lead on to hepatocellular carcinoma, which basically means cells of the liver cancer. This is common with alcoholics as well, who get a cirrhosis, but more common now, believe it or not, in obese patients than in alcoholics. We're getting these more problems with the liver coming in from non-alcoholics than we are from alcoholics. Leading on from that directly, we have cardiovascular diseases. Again, there's a pro-inflammatory involvement. There's also the high cholesterol from the metabolic syndrome causes atherosclerosis, or plaques, calcified plaques forming within the blood vessels of the heart. These cause a narrowing of the blood vessels to the heart, cause angina. Over time, the blood pressure builds up behind these plaques and causes ruptures. This causes clot formations and a blockage of blood getting to the muscle of the heart, which is a heart attack. Similarly, you can get cerebrovascular disease in the same kind of formation. We've just mentioned cerebrovascular disease previously with the blood vessels being damaged to the brain, causing dementias, but you can get strokes as well. From a similar picture of what we've just described with cardiovascular disease, you get plaques forming, you get blood pressure building up behind the plaques, causing a rupture of a plaque. You get a clot, and then you get a blockage of a blood supply to parts of the brain and death of that part of the brain, which is basically a stroke. Also, the final part I would say would be the mental health side of eating UPFs, the mental health implications. So there's obviously the reward, as we've just said, the sugar spikes, which cause a high, a feeling of elation, a feeling of pleasure, which are quickly followed by a low. If this cycle is repeated continually throughout the day or over weeks or months or years, you're getting continual highs, continual feeling good, feeling pleasure, followed by that deep crash and depression and feeling of low after you've used up the initial available sugars within the blood. Also, that leads on to depression. But as we've stated earlier on as well, when we were talking about diabetes, a direct reason or something that's been linked recently to UPFs is dementias, following the pathway that we've just mentioned with the either cerebrovascular disease or whether it's a more complex pathway leading to Alzheimer's. But I'd say that's enough information. I don't want to go too deep into everything, but I hope that's give you an overview of the health problems caused by eating a diet high in UPFs. We can go into this a little bit further in a little bit more detail in future videos. If there's any interest, if people want to know more, let me know and I'll go into specifics, like maybe cardiovascular disease, we can go into that more specifically, or inflammatory bowel disease, whatever you want to talk about. I'm open to ideas. We need to get this message out there. I'm looking at maybe doing a book at the moment. I've written the first 5-6 chapters of a book on UPFs, and I think that's the direction I want to go in. I want to get the message out there. I'm going to get guests on who are more knowledgeable than myself on UPFs, and we're going to try and spread the word. We're going to try and get it out there and tell you the reasons why we shouldn't be eating UPFs. And then I think later on we'll start to look at more, we'll address how you can have a life without UPFs and the kind of after UPF life, how that looks. I'd like to make us all healthier as a population. So if you like these videos, please continue to subscribe, continue to share to get the message out there, and just stay with us for updates. We'll keep going, we'll keep plugging away, and we'll keep making these videos. Any specific questions that you have for us, just mention in the comments. I'm happy to read through the comments and to answer. I have a Facebook channel. I speak to people on Facebook quite regularly. I'm interacting on UPF Facebook sites. Yeah, I've got my TikTok, which I'm not too good at the moment. But yeah, there's other ways to contact me as well. So thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you all again soon. Thank you. Goodbye.